Okay, so this is Pamela from Radio of Horror, here speaking with Jeremy Whitley, creator of the recently reissued Eisner Award winning PrinceLess. So thanks for uh, agreeing to this Q&A.
Oh, no problem. It's my pleasure.
Okay, so in PrinceLess, which I just read, which blew me totally out of the water, it takes place in a fairy tale kind of storybook universe where kings and queens put princesses in towers. And this is the story of Princess Adrian, who kind of doesn't want that life for herself and teams up with her dragon to get herself out of that situation. Could you tell me a little bit about what inspired you to write that?
Yeah, excuse me. A lot of it was, I'd been doing some thinking about, I was getting ready to have a daughter, and a lot of the fairy tales and things like that I feel like girls are sort of taught to aspire toward, feature these characters who don't have any real, agency of their own. They're kind of props in their own stories. And, I wanted to be able to, have this story that I could share with her, both as, somebody who loves comics and wants to share them with his daughter, and, have a fairy tale that I felt comfortable giving her. And I couldn't find anything like what I wanted, so, I kind of made it.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah, unfortunately, when it comes to comics, when they are more inclusive, there tends to be criticism that it's kind of gimmicky. It's happened recently with Brian Wood's All Girl X-Men and with the new Miss Marvel that's coming out next month. Were you confronted with any of that criticism as well?
um, there was some of that, and it seems like there's always some of that. And sometimes I wonder how much of it is real and how much of it is just people doing what they do on the internet. Um, but I don't see how it's gimmicky to include different types of people in stories and tell different stories. I think if anything is gimmicky, it's telling the same story over and over and just having to you know create some one minor twist to make it that different. Like there's plenty of Superman type stories out there. I'm really not interested in telling that story again. I'd rather, have the sort of thing that doesn't exist. And if people think it's gimmicky to do, um, something that I feel like is pretty different, then, I think that's a weird definition of gimmicky.
I know, it's just, I always see things like that, and it's like, because they're trying to get a new audience as opposed to just catering to the same audience that's kind of always been around for like the fantasy kind of sci-fi superheroes, whatever would have you genre. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't like. I don't understand people's objection to um, Brian Wood's X Men. Like, there've been plenty of super teams over the years that have been all male, and that's rarely, if ever, been an area of concern for those people. So I mean, for there to be one, if you count Fearless Defenders, two groups of female characters that are superheroes that are in a team that just don't have any males in them. Like I don't understand how that rare occurrence, though it may be, is uh, it seems to tick so many weird buttons with people. Like it's I mean it was encouraging to me. I've fallen a little bit behind on X Men, but I really enjoyed Fearless Defenders all the way through, and I love all those characters in X Men. So.
Hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things that like I read that I'll see reviews for it, and then it's like, oh, it's like it's not even an all girl comic. And it's like I don't know what you think that means, but it's probably not as good as you think it is. Like that probably sounded better in your head.
Yeah, you know I don't know. I think it speaks a lot to the types of people who think they have a mandate over the comics community, and it's really weird because I was at New York Comic Con this year. I went to the Women of Marvel panel, which like was a huge panel. Like they had to cut the line off like an hour before the panel, um, because so many people, mostly women, were there to see that panel, and like to for people to make the kind of argument that either there's not an audience for it, there aren't women who are interested in comics, and that it's not just that comics keep producing the same kind of uh, crap over and over again, and that's what repels people is ridiculous. Because I mean, I feel like women who enjoy comics have been given in the last couple of years like a couple of things to hold on to, and like that's made all the difference in the world to a lot of people. And I just imagine what it would be like if the diversity that should be there was there,
Mm-hmm. Out soon too, you have My Little Pony Friends Forever. What do you think of My Little Pony finding a wider audience as of recently?
I think it's fantastic. It was a show that I got into just because it was something that I could watch with my daughter and not want to gouge my eyes and ears out. She's two. I can only handle so much Dora the Explorer or Barney or Bob the Builder or anything else. And I feel like My Little Pony has a nice wide berth where it's something that kids can enjoy, but it also has interesting stories and themes and characters that anybody who really enjoys good stories can get into.
Who are some of your influences, or who did you start reading for comics?
Um, I'm a big fan of Brian K. Vaughan and Neil Gaiman. I think are some of the ones that I've had an attachment to a long time. But I'm also in the recent years I've become a really big fan of Kelly Sue DeConnick and Matt Fraction and Gail Simone, and even more recently I've really enjoyed a lot of what Jason Aaron and Brian Wood and some of these guys have done. Like I really got into Mara when it was coming out, recently, and that was, that's I feel like that was an incredible kind of mini series. It was something like I've never really seen before, and I think that's what attracts me to writers and stuff as an influence is they do something that I've never seen before, or they do it like I've never seen before.
Who's your favorite superhero?
That's a tough question.
We can switch it up. If you could have any superpower, what would it be? One
that
or
one's
the
even
other.
harder.
Oh no!
As far as favorite superheroes, I really like the whole kind of Heroes for Hire gang. I really like Misty Knight and Iron Fist and Luke Cage. They're some of my favorites, and I've always been a big fan of the X-Men. I particularly, like a lot of that second generation kind of Claremont group, like Nightcrawler and Storm, are two of my favorites.
I actually just started reading some older Chris Claremont stuff. I got some of the trade paperbacks for it. So I kind of earned some nerd credits on that one because for so long I was like, no, I've never read that, but it's great stuff.
Yeah, and it's funny how foreign it seems now. Like you look at how much dialogue or even just sort of exposition Chris Claremont puts into a page, and everything is packed so tightly into there, compared to what we do now, which I'm as guilty of as anybody, which is kind of stretching it out and having real kind of dialogue heavy stories, and I think reading Claremont now is just an interesting like lesson in how much comics has changed, especially over like the last decade or two.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the things I noticed when I was reading, like the Wolverine story was there was so much narration in it, and I was just sitting there. I'm like, really, this much narration? But you look at the backgrounds, and they're so much simpler. So it's just a totally different dynamic than a lot of modern comics.
Yeah, I mean, I always panic when I'm writing comics and I see like that much dialogue in there. I feel like I'm not leaving the artist any space to draw things, and I'm um, not giving them any room to sort of improvise and do their thing. And like I don't want to crowd out the actual pictures of the comic book, you know. Um, so I spend a lot of time concentrating on dialogue and not so much in the way of narration or thought bubbles or I always kind of have to try and hold back from doing thought captions now because that's one of those things that I always kind of go to with my characters, and I find myself like just blatantly explaining things and talking too long there. So I have to force myself not to be Chris Claremont sometimes.
Was there anything that really attracted you to doing fairy tale and fantasy comics over doing like traditional kind of superhero detective type comics?
Um, I love a lot of the traditional superhero stuff, and I'd really I'd really like to do some of that at some point. Um, but I've always been a fan of fantasy stuff. I grew up on J.R.R. Tolkien and um, guys like that. That was something I was reading even as a kid, um, and I've always enjoyed that. From I my dad used to have little family games of Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. So I've always geeked out on that stuff, and as much as I want to get into writing some superhero stuff and some other types of things, I find that I gravitate a lot back towards, either straight fantasy books or things with kind of fantasy themes, even when I'm doing, like I have a kind of sci-fi story I'm working on right now, but it still has a lot of like weird fantasy elements to it.
So like I had said, PrinceLess has just been re-released. The first issue was re-released. You can get it at your local comic book store for $1. And the rest of the first series is being released. Is that right?
Yep, we're re-releasing the first four issues in single issue because the original releases are pretty much impossible to find at this point. So
I saw it on eBay. It was going for like $60.
yeah, they got pretty expensive, and like I was looking on Amazon, and like the original trades that are still out there, people are trying to sell them for like multiple thousands of dollars, which is ridiculous. So we had picked up some people on reading volume 2, and there were some people that saw volume 2 but wanted to read volume 1 first. So we wanted to get some more trades out there. We did some sort of redesign work and cleaned it up a bit. But we decided we wanted to give people a chance to pick up the single issues and have that $1 starting issue, so people could have a chance to give it a try without committing to something trade size, since a lot of people missed it the first time around.
And then what's up next for Princess Adrian?
So we have got a couple of things coming up for Adrian. Volume 3, which is titled The Pirate Princess, is going to be coming out pretty soon. It should be, I think we've got a preview coming up for it in either the next previews or the one following that. And that's going to be, a 4-part story, and then right behind that we'll have book 4, which is another 4-part story there.
Nice. Wait, she's going to be a pirate?
She's not going to be a pirate, but she's going to have a run-in with some other pirates.
Oh. Nice.
So yeah, and we did a free comic book day story last year, which kind of ties into what we're going to be doing with this story. So it introduced a new character um, who we haven't had a chance to actually get more stuff with her in it, but she will be kind of a major feature of this story.
Okay. Where can my listeners go to find out more about your work?
They can always find everything PrinceLess and everything Action Lab that matter on actionlabcomics.com. And of course, Action Lab is also on Twitter. It's just at Action Lab. But my personal Twitter is JROME 58, so JRome58, and then I have my Tumblr, which is PrinceLessComic.com or PrinceLessComic.tumblr.com, and it's got all the updates on everything PrinceLess that we're doing, as well as some other projects I've got coming up, and things that I think are relevant to interests of people that like PrinceLess as well.
Nice. And I know you just said you had a sci-fi story coming up. Can we have any hints, any clues about that?
Well, that one is still
top secret.
So it's still pretty early in the works. I do have a story that I'm pitching right now that I have some of the early art from on the PrinceLess site, and it's called right now it's called Snow. It's a series I'm doing with my friend Jesse Sharon, who did one of the short stories we did in PrinceLess, and it's about a girl who goes to sleep one night and wakes up, and the whole world around her is changed, and she's in sort of this fantastical world, and her sister has disappeared and is missing somewhere, and she is out to find her. So it's a sort of mix of sort of urban fantasy and horror. So and that's going to be more or less all ages. It's going to be a little bit more. It's going to be a little bit rougher than PrinceLess because we'll have the horror in there, but it's going to be mostly all ages type horror. So be a little scary, but nothing.
Just a little
nothing
creepy.
Objectionable, hopefully.
Are you actually a horror fan?
I am. I like what I guess is kind of old school horror now. I like things that can be scary and creepy without necessarily being crazy, bloody. I'm not into kind of the torture-y kind of horror movies like that. They've gotten pretty popular in the last few years, but I love like older stuff like The Thing and a lot of Stephen King's stories more than his movies. But I love a lot of that real kind of genuinely creepy or genuinely terrifying horror stuff.
Okay.